Ele vai botar o on aqui. Quando ele botar o on aqui, a gente está ao vivo. I think we are all on now. We are online here for our closing speech of our just a second. It's our closing speech for the ninth BRICS conference at the University of São Paulo. Okay, my name is José Nantala. I am one of the founding members of the BRICS study group on the University of São Paulo. And on behalf of Professor Paulo Borba Casella and all our sponsors and partners in this initiative, I'm very glad to initiate and moderate this closing speech with one of our most important professors of international law in Brazil, who is also a great and unstoppable researcher and a very cheered professor for his university. We know how the students like him as well. And it's very nice to have with us this morning to close our event, our ninth BRICS conference, Professor Rafael Vasconcelos. So on behalf of Lidishina, Martins Vilac Advogados, and mostly Ibrachina, who is supporting us with all the technological and infrastructural issues for this event. I would like to invite him in. And Rafael Vasconcelos is full professor of international law, public international law in the State University of Rio de Janeiro. He holds a master's degree in the State University of Rio de Janeiro and one another in the University of São Paulo. So he has 2 master's degrees and also 2 PhD, 2 doctorates, one in the State University of Rio de Janeiro and the other also University of São Paulo. And he did all 4, not all 4 at the same time, but 2 masters at the same time and 2 doctorates at the same time, which is very impressive, mostly in a time when we didn't have these online things, these online structures that we have nowadays, such as Zoom platform that we are using today. So, Professor Rafael, thank you so much for being part of this, for accepting our invitation. This closing speech is a place where we choose important people for our study group and who are also important for international law, international relations, and the whole BRICS discussion to address some your ideas, to address the ideas that you have in mind. And so we don't have a preconceived theme. You can talk about what you are intending to do, and because it's a honor place in our 9th conference. So thank you so much for accepting and for being here with us. The floor is yours, my friend.
First of all, thank you very much. I have to say that I missed the information that we would make this in English. I mean, I forgot it. And so now I have to switch my Portuguese approach to the English one, but it's okay. It's no problem. It's not an issue. I want to thank you, Nantala, for the invitation, to thank my friend, Professor Casella, for the invitation. I talked to him this week that we could meet each other next week in São Paulo, because I'll be there because I'm coming back to São Paulo to a law firm, as I was telling you before we started, but he's not there, and so we missed our schedule. Um, it's to me, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm very honored to be part of this closing section. I thank you, Lantala. I thank the study group on BRICS of the University of São Paulo, Ibrachina, our friend Jackson, that is now behind the scenes helping us to make this happen. But I as a closing section, session, I was not like thinking about a specific issue or a specific topic to bring to you. I would like to make some comments on my view of some things that maybe the Western uh, uh, um, not just the Western countries, but also the Western media and the Western academy is looking at the BRICS and looking at China. And I think that we are somehow misunderstanding that, what's happening now in this 21st century. And that's exactly what I am proposing to do right now with you. I'm I just want to bring to you some reflections. I don't have answers. I just have questions. And I want to present you those questions and try to think with you about those misunderstandings that I think that we are facing right now when we are talking about China. And so we have this Western approach to international law, or to law in general, that we study it at the university. We see it in history, that the Western civilizations, and when I'm talking about it, I'm naming exactly Europe and the United States as the country that inherited this mandate from Europe to rule the world. Uh, but we have historically, and when we look at our history, and when we look at the way we built the institutions on international law, the Western approach is very clear. The Western civilization, or the Western countries, they have a conception of power, a conception of how the countries they should rule themselves inside themselves. And I'm talking about our theories about democracy and representative democracy, liberal democracy, and popular participation on the on the country, on the power, and how to rule the power in a country. And also, but it's not just when we look at inside the countries, it also happens when we look outside the countries, among the countries, when they relate to themselves. And this is exactly when I'm talking about international law. When we build the international institutions, and I'm talking about the United Nations and the World Trade Organization, I mean, the whole Bretton Woods structure, the World Trade Organization, IMF, the World Bank, we made that, and we created a whole structure under this Western view of the world. It's very clear on the debate about human rights. There are some authors that they say that the whole world, they think that their culture, they have the best approach to the human rights, but just the West want to export it to the whole world. And that's somehow what we did with the regular international institutions that we have nowadays on international law basis. Uh, we build those structures under our perspective of the world, under our cosmovision, as I can say, and we just said to the rest of the world, look, that's the way that the world shall organize itself. And we got into it. Countries that were not very or did not exactly had those views or shared those cosmovisions, as I could say. And one of those countries is China. Some countries, I could say that they turned themselves into Western countries. When you look at Japan or South Korea, these are two countries that they were not Western countries in its views, in its structures, and on the cosmovisions that they had 150 years ago. And nowadays, those countries, they are Western countries as any other country of Western Europe or North America. But China did not follow those examples. And how can we see it? I'm not just talking about the revolution, but also before the revolution, the structure of China was completely different, and the construction of that country that we see nowadays, it comes from a very different experience from that one of the European countries and Latin American countries and the Western countries in its general. What am I trying to say in these first comments that I'm making here? That maybe the Chinese approach to international law is not exactly what we are expecting them to do. And that's the point. What what Western countries they do when they win a war? They build institutions on international basis, and those institutions, they are planned and created as they think that it is the best way to rule the world. And we have this expectation from China. We are expecting China to maybe leave the Western structures if it turns itself into the major and the supremacist state in the world, and it starts really to rule the world on an economic basis, military basis, and so on. What's the expectation that we have as Westerns and people that live under this Western cosmovision of the world, that they will achieve this position in the world as the most important country in many ways, and that they will destroy the structures that we have built on the West, and they will build other institutions, and those institutions, they will reflect the Chinese vision of the world. And I think that this is a misunderstanding. We are misunderstanding how it works and how China is playing this game with us, or is playing this game with the West. When we see, for example, the international development, the new development bank that we have, our former president of Brazil, Dilma Rousseff, is now ruling the bank, the CEO of the bank. What's the expectation that I see in many of my colleagues when they talk about the new development bank? The expectation is that the new development bank will make or have the same role that the IMF has and that the World Bank has in the world right now. That the new development bank was created under a Chinese perspective of the world that will someone replace the institution that we built under Bretton Woods. And this is the expectation that I see in many of my colleagues. And what I am trying to reflect right now is that maybe that's not the plan. And I think that we are expecting from China what we would do if we were in their position right now, gaining uh, more and more relevance in the world. That we would destroy the institution that we find on our way, and would build our institutions the way we understand it would better reflect our visions of the world, or the way we want the world to be ruled. And this is the main point of that what I want to label here, our misconception of a broad misconception of what we are now facing on international law basis. I think in what are my questions, and what are, I'm not proposing answers. I'm just like trying to formulate some hypotheses that could answer those questions that I've just placed here to start our conversation. Um, if the Chinese, they don't want to destroy the Western institutions. And what if they are just wanted to create the new development bank to make it easier for them to do what they are not able to do on the institutions, or using the institutions that are already available on international law basis. But if those institutions that are here working with a history of 60, 70, 80 years, if they allow China to do what they want to do, they will very fast and very rapidly forget the new development bank and assume this way that is available since decades, and that was created by the West. And when I say it, and when I propose this hypothesis to answer this question of what I am actually proposing here is a question that if we are misunderstanding this whole thing that is happening in the world, this whole political panorama that we now have in the world, are we understanding it the right way? Are we did we or are we missing something on this whole thing that we are seeing? And we have some um, things that are happening in the last few years and recently, mostly, and most of those things are happening that maybe tell us a story that is different from that one that we are imagining, and that could maybe force us to change our conception of what is happening and change our approach to the way China is assuming this strong position and this important position as a superpower of the world. It is already a superpower in many ways, but we have uh, we still have some paths that are needed to China really achieve this superpower model that we imagine it will someone that China will someone achieve. And what are those facts that we are now facing that brings us this this way to change our view about what's happening now? For example, the superpower that we have now is applying tariffs all over the world. We have this whole tariff subject and issue that is now on the news, and that we are studying it now and studying those impacts. And when we ask, what did Brazil do? What did Canada do? And what did China do? We are trying to solve this in a diplomatic way, trying to trade this this whole how can I say, this whole problem or issue. I don't want to say that it's illegal or this violation of international law, but this issue, we are trying to solve this trading with the United States and trying to solve it in a diplomatic basis. And what was the expectation about China? That China would maybe create its own World Trade Organization, that China would declare somehow a tariff war against the United States, and that China would. No, they did not do it. They started using the dispute settlement system of the World Trade Organization. So they were not like telling us, look, you created this system. You Western countries, you at the end of the war, you created a whole system in Bretton Woods to organize the international commerce, the international exchange, money exchange, the international finance, and now you were just like throwing it all on the trash. And that's I don't want to use it anymore, and I will create my own system. I will make the new development bank the substitute for this whole thing that you are not respecting anymore, that you created and that you are not respecting anymore. And no, they did not do it. They did not made this a movement. No, they are using the international structure that the Western countries created and now are violating. I gave those examples on this example of tariffs and talking about the World Trade Organization because I think that it's very clear, and it's maybe the master subject of this week that you had here in this ninth conference. But we could also give examples of, for example, the United Nations. When you look at the UN Security Council. Now, I have the feeling that the country that most respect, that the most respect the whole structure of the Security Council is China. Because the other two superpowers that are there, they are uh, violating the whole international law, and China is sitting there and saying, "Come on, guys, are you still doing that? Is that right?" Like they are now. China is assuming a position in the Security Council, almost telling the West, "Come on, you built this organization, you built a place to discuss peace and to achieve peace in the world. And all you were making is war." And it's very interesting because we are hearing as Westerns that China will invade Taiwan. I think that I'm hearing that since the year 2000 or 2005. 20 years ago, it was a subject, it was an issue. And from then to now, we have the United States bombing the whole world, Russia invading the Ukraine, and China looking at the whole world and saying, "Come on, is that right? Is that the way that you are going to achieve peace?" I am not telling here that they will never do it. I'm not like, I don't want to be naive here telling this. But what I can tell you is that 20 years ago, when the Western countries were bombing everybody and invading everything and every single country in the Middle East, the Chinese were already accused of trying to or that they were about to invade Taiwan. And I say, come on. I think that in the last 20 years, the Chinese, they promoted much more peace in the world. That is really the the they think that the most propose of the United Nations than the Western countries that created the United Nations. And to me, when I see the proposals of China on the Security Council, the votes of China on the Security Council, to me, it's more. It reflects much more the Western view, at least the theoretical Western view of the world, than what we Western countries are really doing there. I could give another example. And the other example is you have the International Criminal Court. The International Criminal Court, I mean, you don't have those superpowers submitted to it, but we have uh, uh, the Russian president uh, uh, under it. We have the prime minister of the maybe the most important ally from the United States, uh, charged as from the by the ICC, and China is there. I mean, in the other side of the world, and not really involved in it, and I mean, it's to me, and what I want to say, and I'm already um, uh, giving myself a way to conclude what I wanted to share with you in this morning, on this Friday, is that maybe we are what are the main conceptions that I want to give you here, like to sum up my point of view on this whole thing. Maybe we are misconcepting, and we have a misconception of how will China assume its superpower position in the world. maybe we are expecting China to do what we would do if we were as Western countries. I don't like to put Brazil under those under these label of Western countries, because I think that we are somehow the suburb of the West. And maybe as the suburb of the West, we do not have this power of this power, really power as a power of attorney, the power to assume this position as Western country. And so I have somehow these feeling, but I want to say it that we here in the West, we are expecting from China um, uh, to to act as we would act if they were there, if we were in their position to assume this role as of superpower in the world. And what I see is that the last movements, or the movements that China is giving us, or is using, or is taken in the last years, and in this year now particularly, I have somehow it's pointing us, and I have this sensation that maybe they will not destroy the Western institutions. They will not make and build parallel institutions, but that they will much more have an approach to assume the the command of those institutions, that they will someone say, come on, you built this. This is not actually the way that we see the world historically, but it's very useful to rule the world. And so I am now the superpower, and I will assume this superpower position also in the institutions, and I will rule those institutions, not changing for new ones or proposing new ones, but they can somehow and someone take over those institutions, and but not changing them, but using the structure as it's there presented, and the ruling that's there, and the rules that organize those institutions to rule the world. And that's my hypothesis. I don't think that China wants to export their vision of the world to the whole world. They don't. China, the perception that I have is that China does not want the world to be China. And they look at the world, it's different from the Western approach, because we want the world to be like the West, not just using the theories of democracy of the West, not just using the IMF, not just using the United Nations, but also eating at McDonald's, using I don't know, Lacoste or Adidas, or do you know? It's the way that we are. The Chinese, that they are not. They don't want us to use uh, um, um, their culture, or to assume their culture as if it were ours. To them, it's okay that, for example, we use Nike shoe, which is very Western a trademark, and a very Western um, product, but they want to produce it there. It's like much more intelligent. Like, they don't want to make something parallel, like to compete with Nike. For them, it's like, okay, there is this Nike, it's interesting. The Western, they use it, so I don't want to make a parallel trademark to compete with Nike. I want to produce Nike here and export to the West. And it's very intelligent. And I think that they are trying, not trying, because I don't think that they are planning this. I think that this is the way they see the world. They look and they say, come on, they built these whole institutions. That's the way it works. The institutions, they work like that. They follow those rules. So let me see how it works. Let me follow those rules. Let me be part of this. And someone they will like rule those and take over those institutions and rule them. That's the reflection that I wanted to share with you in this morning. This is not, I am not sure about this. I'm not telling you something that I am. Look, I had some reflections in the last few years, and now I am very convinced about this. No, no, I'm just reflecting. This is much more a an approach, my approach to bring you some questions and reflections than answers, as I told you in the beginning. So thank you very much. As I told you, I had to make it happen right now because I'm prepared to talk to you in Portuguese, and I don't know if some words were missed here in English, but thank you very much for the invitation. And Antala, thank you very much to to um, to promote this closing session.
Professor Rafael, the honor is totally ours. Uh, your words were perfectly said, so don't worry absolutely about it. It was really, really wonderful to hear your thoughts on how things are going and how we understand in China and how China is acting, really acting, and the interpretations that we can make about it, and your views on that as well, which is something very valuable for us and for everything, for everyone watching. I sure about it. Uh, Even because nowadays in the international uh, landscape that we are living in, um, we cannot be sure about nothing. It's really difficult. It's difficult times, or as Hobsbawm used to say, interesting times. And what I was paying much attention on what everything you said, and you were talking about how China would um, not only interpret, but be part of the system and maybe take over the system in the future once it realizes fully uh, what it is, and mostly how to do it, and how Western countries, mainly Europe and United States, are treating those institutions they created many decades ago. And this is something interesting because we see what is happening with WTO, with the crisis there in the appellate body. We see the financial issues that the United Nations is facing, with lack of support for founders, and how China is also performing the most important forums that we have internationally, such as the Security Council, in those very difficult topics that we are living with, the wars and everything, the role China is playing in the war between Russia and Ukraine, in the wars in the Middle East, the opinions and everything. So taking that into consideration, and hearing everything that you just said. Do you think that um, uh, China will somehow, if China takes part and assumes the power on those institutions created by the West, uh, how do you think that West would react on that? Would create other ones and try to get back what they lost, or would just wait for another opportunity? Because what I see in China is that they are very realistic. My view is that they look at the things as they are, and they say, "Well, I don't want a Chinese Nike, as you said. I don't want a Chinese uh, McDonald's. Uh, it's not what I'm here. I want food to my people. I want economic growth. I want economic development, and I understanding how it works and how I get advantage from it. So I see that China is being very pragmatic in recent years, no, for 30 years more or less, and how pragmatic they are, and how the Western is reacting a little bit. Uh, I don't know. Sometimes uh, with not so much sense uh, on the rules and institutions that they created. So how do you think West would react on that? And is there really a misconception, or is there really, or is there a fear of the West to lose power? So they are creating narratives.
Look, I cannot predict the
Of
future.
course.
I agree with you about the pragmatism. I think that's the word to describe the Chinese approach to the world now. But when I look at the future, and when you say how will the Western civilization react to this Chinese supremacy and Chinese takeover of the institutions and this Chinese ruling of the institutions, I think, and maybe I'm just like reflecting now about it. Maybe the Western civilization is already reacting to it, destroying the institutions before China assumes it. What I don't think that is the best way to confront China. Like, look, if you have I will use this word, but it's not with the the content that it regularly has. If you have an enemy and this enemy is using your the rules that you created, the institution that you have created to fight you, I don't think I don't I'm thinking now if it's intelligent from the West not to try like we have the whole structure under us, created by us in the West, and we are destroying those institutions and not using them to not to confront China, but maybe to make a contention of China, or to make China a um, a nice superpower to the West. And no, we are destroying the institutions. And you can use, maybe there is already, I don't know them, but I'm sure there is already somehow any conspiracy theory that the Chinese are uh, undermining the Western countries so that they will destroy the Western institutions, so that, but I don't think that we need the Chinese to destroy the West. We are already very good on it. And we are doing this since, I don't know, since ever. Like, look at Europe. When I, and I'm not being here somehow acid or, 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 or trying to be bad with my European friends. But when I see this whole thing about genocide that we are talking about nowadays, and when I see Europe like having somehow a difficulty to to confront it, I feel, look, because they have so many genocides on its account in the history, that it's just one more in their history. Do you know what I'm telling you? It's like the West uh, uh, is a contradiction in itself. Like, we create the whole theory of human rights, but we are the ones that most violate them. And we have like this whole. Let's talk about Brazil. What happened in Brazil last Tuesday? Like, we have the fundamental rights. We have a very nice constitution. We have the um, the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. We have a whole system to protect the people, and we have that violence that happened this week in Rio. And so I don't think we need China to destroy the institutions. And if I answer you about the future, how we will react, I think that we are already reacting. And maybe if I'm reflecting now, maybe China is becoming a superpower because the West uh, started to destroy itself. And like this self-destruction created an opportunity to appear another civilization to assume this position as superpower of the world. And I think that we have seen it many times in history. And it's just once more. Maybe I have to make some comments now about international law, because someone that hears me will say, come on, the guy is a professor of international law and just talked about politics and history. Okay, what do I think about it? I think that we, as um, um, persons that study international law, that work with international law, that deal with international law, we have to assume a very important role to protect international law, to protect the institutions, to um, stimulate our countries to preserve international law, to follow international law, to see if that tariff that will be applied to another country is has somehow respects the the international trade agreements. So we that's our role right now. We have a very important mission as professionals of international law to um, on this movement to try to preserve the institutions, to preserve the treaties and the whole international legal system that we built at least since 1945. But we don't need China to destroy it. No.
Yes. No, yeah. I love that. We are much better on
Yeah.
destroying.
Yeah,
We
from
know the
inside. We are
West,
doing from inside.
the
Like,
as you said, and as you are a teacher in Rio de Janeiro, so the word suburb is a word very well used in Rio de Janeiro, and we are a suburb of the West. And so how the West is good in destroying itself and what it has built, and what has been working for many years as well. So I have a just a question here of from the audience, um, uh, which is more or less like this. It was made in Portuguese. I'll try to translate, but um, the BRICS have been asking for the fulfillment of what was established in international trade, in the institutions of international trade, such as WTO. So, what would be the capacity of BRICS countries to keep the international trade laws uh, if they are not fulfilled or even desired nowadays for its own founders? So, I don't know if you understood the question, but it's more or less like this. Uh, how BRICS countries and China would also rely on those laws created by the West when even the West does not want to respect them anymore, and not even the institutions. How could this system still work if the founders don't respect it and the newcomers are left more or less not left alone, but left there? The institution is there. You can go there. You can file a petition. You can file a consultancy in WTO, and nothing happens because the appellate body is empty because of the West. So um, I don't know if you understood the point.
yeah, understood. But I don't think that maybe this question is about how, but it's that is already happening. And my feeling is that the Chinese, they are relying more on the rules and the Western institutions than the West. And maybe it is not. That's the point. One of the points of what I said. I I I don't. I'm not sure if it is a strategy. If the Chinese there in the Communist Party, they are like in a reunited there in a closing room and telling we will take over the United Nations and the Security Council. I don't think it's like that. I just think that the Chinese, they look at the world and they say, come on, I want to sell my whole things to those guys, and they have that institution there. Let me see how it works. I want to take part. And they study it and they use the rules, the ruling, the ways, the dispute settlement systems. And that's what China is doing now. And I don't think that it's a question of how, but a question of look, they are already doing this. And combining with the other part of the question, if the West is not relying itself on those rules and China is relying itself on those rules, the question is not, oh, will it work? The point is that China is revealing to the world the theater that we are facing right now in the West. That you have somehow a discuss about protecting human rights, but just in theory, because when you go to the praxis, it's completely different. You have a whole um, uh, talking about let's have free market and let's make a trade agreement between Mercosur and the European Union. That's a very interesting topic that I am the person that tells, like, since 2015, 2014, that this agreement does not exist. This agreement does not exist. And China, with this approach to the West, coming here and saying, come on, I want to make investments in infrastructure. I want to, and people respond saying, no, they are interested because they want to have access to our mines, to our products, and they want to sell us their products. Come on, it's okay, but it's like what Europe and the United States want from us. But the difference is that China has a plan to explore it, like with infrastructure. And the Western countries, when they come to South America or to Africa, they just want to explore. They don't really want to leave here somehow an infrastructure to be used by the population. And that's not because the Chinese, they are good and the Europeans, they are bad guys. No, that's not that point. It's that they have a different view of how to make things. Maybe because of the structure of the Chinese state, because I have this perception of China that they find a gold mine. So they will build an infrastructure to explore this gold mine in 15 days. And they are used to it. And here in the West, we are not like that. We are, oh, we have to plan, and then we have to plan to 2032, we will start to explore. I think that we have I don't think that the question is when or how, but the point is that this is already happening. But and the question maybe is if it will work. I mean, if China, someone will not China leave those structures because the country China will say, come on, if they are not relying themselves on those institutions and on those rules, why will I do it? It can happen, but it will be a Western movement of disrespect, of disrespecting the ruling, the rules, the institutions that will make China maybe develop the new developed bank as a parallel institution, but not now. I don't think that they want to do it now. Or if they and this is not maybe a thing of wanting to. I think that they don't see the it's not needed now. It's not why will I like develop this new development bank as a parallel institution if I still can use the World Bank, if I still can use the Bretton Woods ones. I think that this is more strategy. Like if it's working, I will use it. But since it does not work anymore, I will develop my own structure here. And it can happen.
This is wonderful. Thanks a lot, Professor. And it seems that the Chinese learned more about the Roman strategy of keeping alliances than the West or than Europe, because this is precisely what the Romans did back then when they created and they they took aqueducts and infrastructure everywhere and left it even when they were not there anymore, and people were using this. Well, somehow the Romans are not uh, without them, we didn't have this. And sometimes I think that China learned more about the Romans and how to use their lessons than the West did. So thanks a lot, Professor, for everything and for your brilliant closing speech here for us. Uh, it is a great pleasure to finalize our week of work uh, at our ninth conference. You know that it's the ninth conference, but it's the 10th year of GBRICS in the University of São Paulo. We we were registered in the university in August 11th of 2015. So in the same day of the same date of birth of our university here. So we are in our 10th year of existence and our ninth conference. And we had here with us 39 speakers from 8 or 9 different countries. Some of the BRICS, such as we have Brazil, India, China, Pakistan, Ethiopia, um, what else? Lots, 9 different countries speaking here with us, being part of this. An international audience from many different countries of the BRICS countries and of also other countries as well. This is why we do it in English for everybody for a better understanding of everybody. And and this is really wonderful because also we had 39 speakers, 21 men, 18 women. Our study group is more or less the same. We have nowadays 39 members, 19 men, 20 women. We like to keep it that way. We like to give voice and more than that to uh, to understand that the best thing about being part of anything is to keep diversity, is to keep diversity of opinions, of regions, of origins, of because it brings different points of view and it enriches, of course, any discussion that we have anywhere. So it's a great pleasure to be part of the of GBRICS since the beginning and to have beside us incredible people that support us in the University of São Paulo, Ibrachina, Lidi China, Martins Villaki, advogados, and many other people that are supporting us, are sharing with other people the links of our panels, are participating, making questions, asking questions, uh, complaining about the presence list and everything that is involved in the infrastructure of an event like this. So I would like to thank Professor Rafael Vasconcelos for being with us and everybody else that is watching and is also being part of this. We are trying to bring to you in the Ibrachina website, in the Ibrachina page in YouTube, everything that was discussed here. You may find everything stored there. So it's very easy. Just go to the Ibrachina channel and look for our playlist. You may find there not only this version on the ninth conference, but all the others that we had online, okay? Because we did everything with Ibrachina for you to understand how valuable this partnership is. So thank you so much for being part of that. Without you, it would never be possible. And we are here as a study group, as people wanting to learn more about the world and to uh, ask better questions, to have different answers, ask different questions, to receive different answers, and trying to build something together with our minds working. This is what a study group does, and this is why we are still, and we will never be a study group made of students, because teachers are utmost students as well. And I'm sure that Professor Rafael agrees with that as well. So thank you so much, everybody. Rafael, if you want to do your any closing
Yes,
remarks.
just a final remark about I have to thank especially GBRICS because on the summit in July, because I coordinated the NEPED where we have a study group there. I have 200 people engaged on our researches, and we had a conference there uh, in a partnership with GBRICS, and it worked very well. And I have to thank you and I hope that we follow this and we have other conferences together and that we can plan and make things together. I think that we can, now that I'm often in Sao Paulo again, we can build a bridge between our not just our study groups, but the universities and the conference and so on. So thank you very much for the invitation, and it's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. So bye bye, everybody. Thank you once more. See you next year. And stay tuned for other events also that we are always promoting here in our study group and the partnerships that we will have also with the PEDI and other study groups everywhere. So feel free even to contact us and propose your ideas. Bye bye, everybody.
Thank you very much.